Welcome back, and returning to our top story this evening. Tonight, the world's Catholics are in mourning. There's the live pictures of the Vatican. Pope Francis has died at the age of 88. Officials confirming the pontiff passed away around 3:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time this afternoon. The Pope had been receiving treatment for double pneumonia and was discharged 1 month ago. It's unclear how he died. Cardinals will gather to elect a new Pope in 2 to 3 weeks.
And we'll have a guest on that very, very shortly. It's one of those weird sort of news stories where you have an expectation that something like this is about to arrive, and then when it actually does, you're suddenly caught by surprise.
And there's still a shock.
Such a shock. We were all gathered. We sat on this desk getting ready to do the show moments before it started, and we all got the news. And all the crew, everyone was like, "Oh my God!" Like it's one of those things. There's very few things that I think like hit quite like this.
Yeah, and I think because he was seen yesterday on Easter Sunday in Rome and also met with JD Vance at the end of last week, he was, you know, in his position, he was still working up until his very last days.
Yeah. And the JD Vance thing is really interesting too, because for him to be meeting a figure like that with so much, let's just say there is a lot about JD Vance's view of the world that would not be in alignment with Pope Francis's view of the world and his statements of support for minority groups, for migrants, for poor people. It's just extraordinary. That would be an energetic meeting.
He was very openly critical of some of those policies.
Yeah, extraordinary. All right. Let's go back to Colm Flynn, who we heard from in the first half of the show. He's in Rome. Colm, sad news, I think goes without saying, but as we were just talking about there, the fact this is just in the aftermath of Easter. I mean, what does it feel like in Rome at the moment with this news arriving at that sort of time?
Yeah, I've been looking at live shots coming from St. Peter's Square right next to where I'm speaking to you from this morning, and people are beginning to gather and to hold vigil and to pray. I think really it hasn't set in yet. As you can see, the people there on your screen now gathering in front of the Basilica, the shock is still what's in the air and the disbelief. And people saying, really, did you hear this? Some people even asking, is this true? The Pope really has passed away because we saw him yesterday. And, you know, it's interesting, the Easter message is all about life and about light winning over darkness, good winning over evil. And Pope Francis, although when he was on the balcony of St. Peter's yesterday, he only spoke and said 2 sentences, "Good morning, brothers and sisters, and happy Easter," he had a pre-prepared 20-minute speech, and he handed it over to his master of ceremonies, who read it to the crowd while he sat there in silence, sometimes even closing his eyes. And in that message, this is the last speech given to the world by Pope Francis, called the Urbi et Orbi, which means his message to the people of Rome, a message to the people of the world. It's pretty incredible and poignant when you think of what's happened since. But he said that the Easter message, Christ is alive. He's not in the tomb. We shouldn't look for him there. We should look for him out in the world. He said, I want to call for an end to violence and war and conflict around the world. I'm expressing my closeness to the people, the suffering people of Palestine and Israel. I want a permanent ceasefire and the release of hostages, the feeding of starving people around the world, an end to the war in Ukraine, praying for the Christian communities in Lebanon and Syria and in different parts of Africa where they have deep conflict and division as well. This was the last message given by Pope Francis. But you know what, guys, when you think about it, this is exactly what Pope Francis has been preaching since he became Pope back in 2013, the message of love and of peace, the gospel message.
The death of a pope is steeped in centuries of tradition. Take us through what happens now.
Now, when the shock passes and the realisation sets in, we normally have around 9 days of mourning in and around the Vatican. And during that, people will start to come from around the world. World leaders will be paying their condolences and their respects. And people will start to reflect on the life and the legacy of the Holy Father. Of course, a legacy is in the eye of the beholder. It's a very complicated thing. There are those who were great fans of the Holy Father, Pope Francis, others who were rather confused and dismayed at some of the things he put emphasis on. But those are things that will be talked about in the weeks to come. But at the moment, it will be mourning. It will be reflecting on the points of his papacy. And then you will have the papal funeral in St. Peter's Basilica. Now, interestingly, the Pope, breaking tradition like he does with a lot of things, he has already requested that he is not buried in the crypt and in the tombs of the Vatican, along with all the other popes who have passed. He wants to be buried in a separate basilica here in Rome, the Basilica of Mary Major. It's one that he holds dear. It's a basilica that he has visited before and after every international papal trip he has taken. So that's an interesting point. But then after that, of course, the reality is that the mechanisms of the Vatican will kick in, and we will be looking at a conclave and for a successor and for the future leader of not only the Catholic Church, but over 1.4 billion Catholics around the world.
Well, Colm, as you've reflected upon, Pope Francis struck me as a pope who wanted to do things differently. That seemed to be his legacy. Do you think that after that conclave, whoever his successor is, whoever the next pope may be, will they continue it, or will we see a different direction for the Church?
That's a great question, and we have a saying here in Rome. The Italians say, you know, we have a fat pope, a skinny pope, a fat pope, a skinny pope, meaning that sometimes you can have a more conservative, more traditional pope, and then after that it swings back and you have a more liberal, more open pope, if you like. So we definitely saw that in after Pope John Paul II, you had Pope Benedict XVI, who was from Germany, a brilliant mind and a brilliant theologian, but someone who was used to the classroom and to teaching. He liked the rigor and the rules of the Catholic Church. He liked the beauty of it. He liked the beauty of the gospel. And then you had the first ever Latin American Pope, Pope Francis, who said, look, let's have synods. Let's put everything up for discussion. Let's talk about some of the more controversial and thorny issues of the Church that affect people all over the world. Let's go out to the people. Let's go to people of the Muslim faith, of the Jewish community. So we will have to wait and see what happens next. A lot of it will be down to the politics of the conclave. But ultimately, as Catholics, we believe it's the man upstairs, it's the Holy Spirit who's in charge and who will make that decision.
Colm, it's such a huge day. It's so good to have someone like you to guide us through it. Commiserations for you, of course, as well as all your brothers in faith. And thank you very much for speaking to us tonight.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me.